Hey YouTube, this is Zach with Achilles Financial, and we are back with another video, and I am here to walk you through 3 features that Robinhood uses that I am a big fan of, and in my personal experience I believe that they are underrated, as well as one feature that I don't think you should ever use at all, because for the most part I think that it's just older information. So as far as the features that I really like to use, the first one that I'm going to take us through is this expand feature right here. And what you're going to do when you click this is it's going to show the average volume for a stock. So as you can see, we've got these candle features. These do not necessarily update in real time, so just be aware of that. Rather, what I like to do is I like to use this as far as momentum trading. The reason for that is if I go back to the Bank of America stock page and we look at the average volume, you can see here that average volume, which means how often is it traded on a day-by-day basis. They trade on average right at 88 million shares per day, or transactions. The reason that I highlight that is because as you can see here, when you have these huge transactions where we've got 5.38 million in a single instance, and really as we go through this, you can just see that we have on average just a ton of trading volume. Those are important indicators. I like to look at that. I like to know what the trend is. Again, I oftentimes am doing a lot of options-based trading, and that is largely going to follow what the trend is in terms of the premium pricing. So as you can see, as the trading volume, particularly here at the bottom of my screen, as that continues to go up, it's important to keep track of that so that you can determine what moves are you going to make. And a lot of those moves are going to be coming at the opening and closing bells of the market, as well as depending on what news there's going to be. So that is probably a feature that I don't necessarily look at in real time. However, I'm going to be tracking this in my after hours look back or before the market opens and see what it did the day before. So that is one example of stocks that, or rather a feature that Robinhood has that I feel like a lot of people don't utilize or even check. The second feature that I want to look at is these list options here at the top of your screen. So oftentimes, I know on the app it's a little bit more user friendly, but if I go here, I can type in 100 and it'll show the 100 most popular. Or if I go into infrastructure, you can see that it'll show different lists associated with that. The reason that I highlight that is because this is very important to know what are some sympathy plays or what else are people going to be looking at or buying if I'm looking at an individual stock. So for example, a stock that I talk about very often on this channel, Bank of America, you saw my 100 shares that I have here, as well as the other stocks that are in my watch list. However, what this will be very beneficial for is if you're looking for a sympathy play being a stock related to the one that you're purchasing. So you see Visa and MasterCard here. You see Wells Fargo and Citigroup, as well as JP Morgan and Bank of America. The reason that I highlight these is because if you're very bullish on a stock, for example, Bank of America, if you're very bullish on that play, then what you may also look at is say, well, what other banks do I want to be looking at? Maybe TD Bank, maybe I'm looking for another big institution, maybe US Bank or Truist Financial. When we're looking at these other sympathy plays, I want to be knowing why are they moving that the way that they are. So for example, Bank of America was down 20 or 0.20% today. However, Truist right here, which is another large super regional bank, was down nearly 3%. Does this mean that my investment is going to continue to go down? Or does that mean that there's something different occurring with Truist? I don't know. But these are the type of questions that I ask when I'm looking at these different financial statements. Lastly, the third feature that I use all the time is going to be lower down here, and that is when are earnings. As an options trader, there's generally speaking going to be moves based on earnings. So if someone comes out and they do worse than earnings expected, you tend to expect that to go down. Or if they do better than earnings, then they tend to go up. However, what I'm looking at is just the date. The reason that I highlight that is because the EPS, or the earnings per share, don't always move the stock as much as you would expect. So I think that this can be deceiving, and since we're on Truist, this one is a brand new company as of this calendar year or the end of last year. So let's go into Bank of America again. As you can see, when we're looking at this though, this isn't necessarily a good indicator when we're looking at this EPS of how the stock performs, because what people sometimes want to know is different revenue volumes. They want to know what markets are increasing. For example, in Bank of America, the trading market for them, or their trading volume, wealth creation, is growing, but we also want to know that interest income is also growing. So this can be deceiving, this part here. The big thing that I like is the earnings. What is that date? And again, a website like Earnings Whisper or something else is going to be beneficial there as well. So this is the third feature that I like. Again, the first, we've got the expand functionality. The second, we've got the different list segments that we can look at. And then lastly, again, we can always look at the individual stock value here, as well as what the earnings date is going to be. So those are the three features that I really like. The one feature that I think that you should never be basing your info off of unless it's just general research is their news functionality. And this is in particular importance when we're looking at options trading. The reason that I highlight this is because most of the time when this news is released, we're seeing it at a much later time period than the broader market is noticing it. So for example, when CNBC releases an article, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be showing up here on the news until 4 to 6 hours later, or just later in general. So it's important to know that, because I think when this pops up, and if you see something great on McDonald's right here, or maybe neglectful on McDonald's, you may want to go and buy that stock right away or make a trade based on that stock. However, the rest of the market's already priced that in. So if you're just doing general research, this can be helpful. If you're saying, I'm going to go make a trade right now, I tend to think that Twitter is going to be a better source, and there's a lot of different accounts that you can follow, which is going to highlight that information. So that is some of the pros and cons and tips and tricks that I like to use on Robinhood. So again, that's 3 different things that you can do and should incorporate, and then one that I think there's just better resources for. So if you found the video helpful, please leave a like down below, and if you're new, please feel free to subscribe. In other news, thank you everyone for being here, and I'll talk with you later.